Now, since the return to multi-party politics in Kenya, 4 general elections have generated intense criticism with claims of rigging and other malpractices.
The question being raised now is whether the problem is with the politics or the institutions entrusted with running of Kenya's elections. KTN Samogina sought to find out the take of analysts after the revelations in our special investigative series 50+1 on the Inside Story.
The vote has been described as a weapon or instrument of regime change each election period. But since the scrapping of the single-party state, most if not all elections have been dogged with malpractices since 1992 when Kenneth Matiba claimed he was robbed of victory. The closest Kenya has come to a smooth multi-party election since 1992 was in 2002 when Uhuru Kenyatta conceded defeat to former President Mwai Kibaki. Begging the question, is the country's electoral system so fundamentally flawed that it is impossible to get it right?
We are caught up in this trap of not being good losers.
In the advent of a one-party state, the ruling class introduced the mlolongo of the queue system that was criticized as being skewed in favor of the president's loyalists. The country would later advance into the use of voters' register called the Black Book. But after the 2007 bungled elections, the Black Book would be ditched for an electronic voters' roll of the poll book. Kenya had advanced to the levels of Ghana and South Africa in using technology in its election, or so it seemed.
We are a long way, but we had gone by 2002, we had reached a very, very good level. Then in 2007, in the middle of 2007, between May and the end of the year, most of the experienced commissioners, and they are still, some of them are still alive, were sent home. The lot that was brought in by the people who are now in power, they meant that they should be favored. And that did not help at all. It brought us into chaos and people fought.
But even with the advancement in technology, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission is taking flack for conducting a shambolic election. Just like its predecessor, the defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya, the opposition wants IEBC disbanded for undermining the sanctity of the vote.
I don't know why anybody sat down and said the Electoral Commissioners must serve for 6 years, non-renewable. When you have been, I was in the Electoral Commission for 15 years, and I had just got the gist of it. What does experience really mean? The Ghanaian chairman and vice chairman serve the commission until they are aged 65.
Now we have got laws that determine how people are going to get onto that body. And we are aware, of course, that even those who are a little grumpy today about the IEBC, its composition and how it has functioned, they did actually participate in the process that put in place those people whom they are telling us today that they do not want.
But even as pressure mounts for the disbandment of IEBC, election experts warn that the answer is not the disbanding of the commission, but rather in fixing the loose ends in the commission's structure. Experts say, unlike the past where election deaths were the incumbents' ammunition against other candidates, electoral institutions have been set up and dispute resolution mechanisms equally established, and it is these institutions that require strengthening.
Until we get down to our problems and polish up the section, even as I've seen in the paper today, people are saying, oh, the commission should be disbanded. How many times are you going to disband the commission? You will disband and the lot that comes in might just be the same lot.
Our first business.
Nonetheless, there is a general consensus that even in developed democracies, no election is foolproof, but it is how the electoral inadequacies are handled that determines the credibility of the polls.
It is also true that it's not just here in Kenya or in Africa where that kind of defectiveness obtains. We can remember that in the year 2000, there was contestation about election outcomes in the United States in the presidential race between Al Gore and George Bush.
IEBC will face another test in 2017 that will either redeem its reputation or break its back if it survives the onslaught over its disbandment. Samogina, KTN.